The last two anecdotes have been relatively lighthearted. Today's anecdote is very not. You may get the impression that the whole family presents a united front against Carol. That's a little south of the truth. My mom and Uncle Tim resent Carol, resent being told to deal with her, and are generally combative. Bob is basically the pit prop for the family and hates it. He just tries to smooth things over because it's what his dad did. And Uncle Craig just wants to have a life to himself. Can't say I blame him. In dysfunctional families, there's this kind of false closeness brought on not by love but by obligation. What would bring other people together only serves to smother us. This story occurs when Tim is on wife number 2. He's in relatively good spirits, and as such, he's much more open to spending time with certain members of his family. He, Craig, and Bob all meet at Craig's house to have a go at the pool table, drink some beers, basically just do nothing. Craig's wife and daughter are gone for a girls' day out, and so when Craig hears a car door, he jokingly says,
"Here comes trouble."
And in steps Carol. Bob said every muscle in Tim tensed up. Tim and my mother sort of compete as to who hates Carol more. Tim has had more time to get sick of her, but then again, Carol never facilitated his near date rape. Carol seems unusually quiet. Craig tries to play the polite but distant host, asking what Carol wants.
I think I hit something with my car,
she says, and instantly they all know it's bullshit. She's hit something, and she knows it. She's just starting off small in hopes that it would soften them up. That might seem like a lot to get out of one sentence, but this is Carol we're talking about here.
You think?
Tim says flatly. Carol nods. They can see she's waiting for someone to ask about it, so she can foist the responsibility of checking it out on them. Tim shrugs, takes a gulp of beer.
Tell the cops.
Carol pouts a little.
I'm sure it's nothing. Probably just a dog.
Uncle Craig makes a horrible connection.
You don't know what it was. Didn't you have your headlights on?
Carol makes a sour face.
Why should I? The other cars use their lights. I can see plenty fine.
The three brothers stare at her. Carol's incompetent driving was a legend at this point, but this was a new low. Bob sighs, sets his beer down, and gets up. Tim grabs at his sleeve, shaking his head. Bob warily brushes him off. Uncle Craig rises too, and Tim makes an angry noise as he gulps more beer. He declines to join them outside.
It probably cracked the windshield. I might have to get a new one, but you should just install it because it's too much trouble to go to a shop.
Carol babbles as Uncle Bob snaps on the garage light. The flood lamp illuminates Carol's car, and the poor bastard currently sitting half in, half out of her smashed windshield. Bob shouts,
"Jesus!"
and drops his beer. Uncle Craig gapes at the car, and Carol? When Bob told me this, it sent chills down my spine. He said Carol was looking at them, watching them, reading their reactions. He could see all the cogs in her head working, parsing out how she was going to play this. It disturbed him, but what disturbed him more was that he knew he would be helpless to stop whatever it is. Tim comes out after hearing Bob shout. He takes one look at the car and whistles.
Carol, you asshole,
he says. Carol frowns.
It's not my fault. I didn't see him. Who crosses the road in the dark?
I'm disappointed that no one asked, well, who the fuck drives without lights at night? Bob shakes his head.
"We have to call the cops."
Carol makes an angry noise through her nose.
Well, that's too much trouble. Can't you just take care of it?
Take care of a fucking body? No, I goddamn can't.
Craig goes down the steps and starts looking the guy over. The poor bastard punched through the safety glass with his head. His face is barely recognizable under all the blood. Craig wriggles him out a little ways, trying to turn him over and get identifying information.
It's probably just a hobo.
Carol crosses her arms like a bitchy prom date.
No one's going to miss him.
That doesn't matter. Carol, you're looking at a charge of vehicular manslaughter. That's a very serious charge. You can't just...
The guy in the windshield lets out a groan. They all jump. The sound doesn't repeat. Craig bravely puts his hand to the guy's wrist. There's a pulse. Bob claps his hands.
Okay, look, we'll call the cops, an ambulance. If the guy lives, you're looking at a lesser charge. Maybe a suspension, some community service. Let's get him out of there.
Together, the brothers pull the guy out. He's definitely breathing, faintly, and he lets out another groan as they turn him over. Tim theorizes that the guy has severe neck trauma from hitting the glass. They shouldn't move him too much. Carol? Carol has this blank look on her face, arms still crossed. Bob said he thought she was coming to terms with what she'd done, finally facing up to the future she'd laid down. Bob goes inside to call 911. Craig follows to get a blanket for the poor guy. Tim's fetching the first aid kit. Bob said there was this moment while they were busy in all their little activities where they all turned to each other and made a realization at the same time. The realization was that they had made a terrible mistake coming inside. Tim burst out of the house first. Carol is sitting with her arms crossed, just looking at the car.
I don't think you need to call anyone,
she said indifferently.
He's not making noise anymore.
The guy's head is sitting sideways on his neck, very decidedly not where it was when they went inside. Bob hangs up the phone. He said in that moment, he realized that this woman was not his sister. This woman had no relatives, no other person in her universe but herself. Tim doesn't mince words.
You fucking killed him.
No, I didn't.
Typical brilliant defense.
Tough shit, I'm still calling the cops.
Carol smirks.
I'll just say you did it.
Tim flushes red and charges at her. Sadly, Craig and Bob grab him and prevent him from killing Carol. Carol just shrugs and stands up.
Well, you deal with it.
She walks off. Bob wrestles Tim down. No easy feat. He tries to tell Tim they're stuck. They need to deal with it. But the Tim just keeps growling.
Why? Why?
And Bob doesn't have an answer for him. It was so ingrained into him to excuse everything Carol did, but he had no idea why. And this dysfunctional logic, upsetting the status quo, would be worse than covering up Carol's murder of a homeless man. Craig looks sick, but he doesn't object. He helps hold Tim while Bob explains the course the evening will take. They will smash in the windshield, collect all the glass and throw it away. They will take the body and throw it into the river. They will clean the car inside and out. No one will go to jail. Tim, stuck under their weight, eventually agrees. The dynamic between them changes then, and it changes forever. They don't talk as they load the poor guy's body up, along with a garbage bag of glass, and take it out before Craig's wife and child come back. When it's all over, Bob drops Tim off at his hotel. Before the door closes, he says,
Tim.
Don't fucking talk to me.
Tim snaps and slams the door. Carol gets a new windshield courtesy of Leland, who doesn't even question her bullshit anymore. Bob considers telling their father what had happened, what he had created by supporting Carol at the cost of his other children. And Bob knew at that moment if he told their father, there were two possibilities. One, things wouldn't change. Two, things would change horribly. He kept it inside him all these years, and to the best of his knowledge, so did his brothers. Bob begged me not to tell his wife. I said I wouldn't, if he would. Lack of communication was one of Carol's most effective weapons. It's what let her go on hurting people because no one knew what to expect. Bob agreed that if Amy hadn't left him yet, she probably would now. It may sound odd, but that wasn't the most shocking revelation from my uncle. No. That one would be the next one. The one from Carol's childhood.